Okay, so I'm going to approach this exam or preparing for this exam um, as I would for a student. So you have this part. Okay, this is the same question, same concepts from our study guide activity. You have the study guide that goes with it. You also have Quizlet, which I've actually printed off card decks or cards that you can use just for a quick reference. There's many different print options if you go to print, if that's the way you want to do it. I printed this off because it's easier for the way I've done this video. So let's just stick with luxury goods. We talked about that in class, so let's do one that we didn't talk about as much. Heard a lot of questions about credit and monetization. Okay, so credit and monetization. If I'm going to be planning in this area, I might think, okay, so monetization, I'm thinking money, right? So what about money? We start off with coins. What's the problem with coins? Coins are heavy, right? Bulky. So they go to paper, right? Paper money. And this is China, and in particular the first, currency, state currency was the Song Dynasty. Okay, so you see, I have a few ideas about how I want to organize just this idea of money, right? So how do you put that into a sentence, right? Into a statement? I'm actually going to probably work on a few more of these concepts before I start to think about a statement, right? Maybe I'll skip the statement for now and just start to outline this money and credit thing, right? So this money eventually leads to credit, right? Credit and checks, right? We know that checks came from the SOC system, and that was the Abbasids. So the Abbasid dynasty, which was an Islamic caliphate, right? It was the second major Islamic caliphate. So something happened, right? Something happened right here, in here. Something happened for this need. So we had heavy leads to paper. But what happens when you leave your stacks of bills all over the place? I mean, people can pick them up and spend them at will. So credit and checks makes it personal, right? Personalizes it. Personalizes the exchange or the record of the exchange. Okay, so you can't just go make some credit cards or print some checks. You actually have to have a system, right? And banking is an Asian thing at this point. The caliphates have banks, the Chinese have banks, and this is established for security. So I've filled up most of the space just with this one concept of credit and monetization. We have to connect it. Well, we can connect it to state practices, right? Currency connects with state practices. Over here, security, right? We'll circle these. Security connects with trade organizations like the Hanseatic League, right? So I've given you this space to plan. Please do it. I've also given you this in advance. Please use it. I can't give you all of this stuff, but you see how when you just start with one, kind of like what we did in the study guide, you can build on that and start to make connections after. Don't act like it's possible to solve the whole big problem all at once. Okay? It's not going to happen. Start with one part. I started with money. I know about money. I have money, not a lot, but I know how it works. So let's start there, right? Luxury goods. You could do the same thing. Obviously, we need luxury goods, right? That leads to the growth of trade, right? Growth of trade. I started with money. How does that relate to the growth of trade? This is our big significance piece, right? Up here with significance, we want to include that for sure. For significance and money and all that, it it happens because they need to increase security, right? Which increases, the amount of people who are going to be trading in different areas. There's less of a risk for the people trading if they know that they're not going to be robbed. There's also a better, with banks, right, and security, often provided by the state, there's a greater chance of being able to keep good records, okay? Keep very good records. It's easier than, with coins and paper, because you have names, right, and you have account numbers, and you have records. The state's provided, identification for people, and this has also allowed them to tax you, so you had to pay tribute to the states. You had to pay taxes for the ability to use their roads, benefit from the security, benefit from the replenishing of supplies. Wait a second, this kind of connects us into caravan organization. So far, if you did this, if you knew all this stuff, had this memorized, which again is all right here, right? It's all right here, right? Caravanserai, we have caravan organization. Wait, not that one. Caravan organization, right? Right here. It's all your examples. You start counting up the examples. If this was what you had for a question on the AP exam, you're talking about your technology. There's a couple of facts. Comfort, military movement, personal travel. There's a couple of facts. The roadside inn, caravanserai. Give an example. Samarkand is an example. So there's like almost 5 facts just with two things there, right? And we're just talking about one concept. But what if you just had one example for each, right? One example for each would be 6 pieces of evidence. There's your evidence. And then you talked about the significance, right? There's your analysis, okay? You talked about how one thing led to another. There's your points for analysis. You make a statement. Let's do that. We'll finish up this video with the statement. Because really, you got to plan this out before you know what you're going to say for the statement. The question's asking, how did luxury goods, new business practices, and technologies contribute to the growth of trade? Okay? So with luxury goods, we're talking about demand, right? So demand for luxury goods led to let's see, in terms of business practice, let's talk about credit. Let's see the growth of trade, the development of state practices such as currency. Demand for luxury goods led to the development of state practices. How about let's just say currencies. Currencies, security, right? These are our themes that we kind of got out of there. Security. And let's just say, new technologies. And ways to organize along trade routes. Okay, there's one statement. How does this lead to the growth of trade, right? These developments, referencing what you wrote right there, right? These developments made it easier for regions to connect with less risk and increased gains, such as tax base. Okay, this would be an indirect tax. Okay, so this is complicated. I gave you a really complicated thesis statement here because this is a big problem, right? Now, obviously, if you write my thesis statement in your essay, you're not going to get credit. It's not your work. But if you just do what I did, map it out. We started with money. We went to coins. We went to paper. All this is currency. I used that right here in my statement. Okay, I used currency in the statement. Over here, we went money to credit. We wanted to connect that, right? We had this void that we had to figure out. How did it get there? How did this happen? They didn't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I know it's Friday. Have a good weekend. Come in on Monday. We're going to use checks. It's going to be great." That didn't happen that way. There was a need, security. Okay, security, making the payment personal, and also, you know, developing record keeping, right? Which helped, whether it was like, you know, business to business leagues based on guilds, based on businesses that had supply streams that fed one another, like the salt mines in Hamburg and the herring fishery, you know, in Northern Europe, or whether it was just security along the Silk Road trade routes, where the Mongols came in and established checkpoints and made it a healthy place of commerce for foreign merchants. All these things factored in there. So I used security, I used currency, and I also said new technologies, right? New technologies and ways to organize, right? Like the caravan. I might talk about the caravan on the camel saddle. Really, you could get this job done and get plenty of credit, get an A on this, and only combine this one a little bit with this one, or just do 1, 2, just mention that 1, 2, 3, 4, and really get an A. You could do 4 of these if you have enough examples, right? If you have a decent statement, okay? So I hope this helped. I just want you to make sure that you realize it's going to take a little bit of time on your part. I just spent, I'm an expert on this, and I just spent 13 minutes talking about it. You're probably going to have to spend about 30 or 40 minutes working it out. But just start in one place. Start with something that you're familiar with. Don't worry about all this, all 6 of these concepts. Start with one that you know. Maybe you know the goods. Maybe you know the caravan organization. Look up Samarkand. It'll help. Look, maybe you did state practices. Go there. Maybe you want to start with the study guide. You see a slide on the study guide that looks great and you have some good information. You want to start with some of those ideas. Okay, just make sure you start somewhere and then start to connect the ideas.